Hi, my name is Laxing. I play the lurk/flank watch for Oxygen Esports. You're watching Rainbow Six NAL.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And off of a series where we just saw a crazy upset happen, now we're going to see Oxygen against Spacestation Gaming. I'm your host, Veli. I'm going to be here with my two analysts, Jesse and Jacob. Jesse, this matchup, man, what should we keeping our eyes on?
I mean, Spacestation versus Oxygen, these are two teams that I think, have a lot of name recognition behind them. These are teams that people expect to be at the top of the leaderboards this season, but both have struggled in recent games. Oxygen last week definitely didn't have the performances that they wanted to have, and Spacestation, all season long, adapting to their new player, Luke, has been a bit of a rough patch for them. But to me, I think this is going to be a real test of Spacestation, where they're actually at in the league, because they have been kind of all over the place. They lost to the Sonics pretty badly. They almost beat TSM. So it's really still a question mark for my mind on where they're at in the league. And for Oxygen, this is going to be a battle of proving that last week was a fluke, and they're here to stay, and they deserve to be at the top of the league.
Now, talking about how they deserve to be at the top of the league, and we've seen what they're able to do on game day, besides last week, of course. Jacob, let's talk about the players on this roster, man. Kino and Yaga have been lights out. Yaga has been quietly destroying teams, but on the other end, Kino has been a monster.
Kino has been exceeding expectations that have been set for him. Coming right up from CL, jumping into a team that already had a lot of established name on it. Honestly, at this point, if we stopped talking about Kino, we would have already done our job because of what he's been able to prove so far through these first couple of games. Like, prove me wrong, he's been doing such a good job at a role where he probably wasn't expected to be at the top of the scoreboard for OXG. He's been doing fantastically, but I will actually do something I'm not supposed to do, and I will counteract, or I will counter what you said about Yaga quietly destroying teams, because as I'm sure Jesse can also probably talk about in a second, he's been relatively quiet. Like, not like he hasn't been living up to his own expectations, but he came in with a lot of fire. He's also got CL talent, but maybe in like the way that this roster's been using him, something for Yaga just hasn't quite clicked yet.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, what Jacob's going on about, because Yaga has been struggling. I don't like to hate too much on the new guys, but it has to be pointed out. In their last match, he went 4-13 and 0-6 on entry. Died 6 times for the first pick, never got the opening kill. In the 4 games that Auction's played so far this season, Yaga's gone negative in 3 of them, and that's fine if you're like a support player, but Yaga's got a 100% pick rate of Ashe when playing on attack. So, like as Jacob said, something's not clicking here, and for the most part, the rest of the team is sort of like picking up the slack. But when you see a player like an Ashe main who's supposed to be the entry, especially a young fragger who's known in the scene like Yaga, you want him to be getting kills, and that is just gonna be a requirement for somebody playing his role. So I hope he gets more into it. Obviously, it's not been impacting Oxygen too badly here. They're still playing well as a team, but going forward as an individual, Yaga's gonna need to step it up a little bit.
All right, now when it comes to last week, Jesse, we saw 2 big losses come on the hands of Oxygen, and it came to the surprise of Sonics, who's now on top of the NAL, just about, right? And also Disrupt Gaming. It was a close loss, 7-8. They went to Oregon. Oxygen, on defense, they were 4-3, but on attack, they kind of struggled as well. When you look at this roster, look at what happened last week, and you're looking at this matchup right now. Are there any glaring holes that you would like to see corrected when it comes to Oxygen's gameplay in order for them to win this matchup?
I don't know if there's anything like super obvious that Auction are doing wrong. That one game against Disrupt, it was pretty confusing. We saw Fox playing on the hard breach, and we saw Kino instead moving over to the sledge. We have yet to see Auction play another map that doesn't require double hard breach. They seem to do pretty fine when playing double hard breach because both Fox and Yaga can be on that role. But I want to see them maybe try Fox going on more of an aggressive role. I know he's their IGL. I know Kino's one of their star players. But still, it feels like they're on comfortable roles already. And keeping them on the roles they're familiar with might serve them a little bit better. I think that overall Auction has been like a successful team, and I'm not trying to like bring this, we're saying a lot of bad stuff about them, but overall this is a team that's looked very good this season. I think Vertical's been amazing. He's been pretty consistent, and a lot of the rounds where they do lose tend to come when Vert's not really performing at his peak. So I don't know. I think overall this is going to be a game with Oxygen making sure they're consistent, right? Making sure they're playing to their level and not throwing away easy advantages.
I'd like to make sure that I make it clear on this desk that, yes, Oxygen has been lights out this season, but it happened last week where they started to fall, and that's when we started to get a clearer picture of how things were in this league. Now, when it comes to their opponents right now, Jesse, we're talking about the world champs, Spacestation Gaming. They were not here when it came to the first Playday, but when it comes to getting that first opening pick, you think that they might be good or bad?
Well, they're pretty good. They have the strongest opening pick rate in the entire NAL, 62%. This is exemplified by Rampy and False. These two have been incredible, both in the top 3 of the league for the opening pick statistic. Even in that last game, Rampy took down Bolo out of 3 of 6 attacking rounds in the regular time. They've been really strong, and a lot of it's due to some surprising play. We saw from Rampy, if you go back and take a look at their last game on Chalet, he was doing crazy stuff like hiding in bathroom and letting the enemy team push past him before he went for a flank. He was bringing out the Nook, like really creative, aggressive strategies that are surprising the opponents and getting these opening picks. This is something that the veterans on Space Station, both Rampy and Faltz, who's kind of new to the roster, but I think it's fair to call him a veteran at this point, have really been strong at. And so I want to see that trend continue. Overall, we do see teams find a much higher success rate when they get that opening pick. I believe the current league average is 62%. So it's obviously a huge boon for them, and I want to see Space Station continue to grow with that.
Jacob, to kind of recap what happened last week, that was when we started to see Space Station Gaming improve greatly. We saw that matchup against TSM, by the way, where they lost in overtime 6-8. Yes, I did mention this before, but the big thing is Luke and the rest of this roster, they seem to be fitting in pretty well. Matter of fact, Rampy 11-11, he has some great moments. We're talking about a 4-0 entry. With 3 games in now, even with Luke as their 5th, who is replacing Canadian, retired. How do you see this roster?
So I do think that Luke is beginning to kind of hit his stride a little bit more, which is always a nice thing to see. And the cool part about it is we might be approaching a point where it's not that we have to keep on talking about him and like Canadian not being here and how SSG kind of has to adapt. This is probably one of the worst states that we've seen SSG in for a while, just from like a standings point of view, because when we came into today, they were in 7th place and we're used to them being in like the top 4. So that was kind of like foreign to most of us here. But I do think that the rest of Space Station are beginning to like find their stride at the same time that Luke is. Bosco is still leading the way. He's 31-21, a 1.17 rating. He is carrying the torch, and he's playing hard breach most of the time. He's still playing ace. Fultz and Rampy still probably the best entry duo that we've seen in the all of the NAL so far.
Scary,
They're still so good. Like Fultz is 8-3, Rampy is 9-3, and that's just on their entry stats. So they continue to show up there. But if it means like the opening pick for Space Station is so crucial, there's still a reason why they've lost 2 games, and one of them being that overtime loss to TSM. I don't know if I want to blame Chalet for being the reason, but I do know that something about their later executes seems like it's falling apart comparative to the way that they start rounds. If they start rounds by getting that opening frag, then they're doing a good job. It's just like finishing the job sometimes is something that they're having a little bit of trouble with. I think it's correctable. I don't think it's the end of the world. Give it a little bit more time, and let's see whether they can do what they did to TSM against Oxygen today. What did they do? Took them to overtime and had a really good chance to win the whole thing.
You know what, Jacob? I'm just hoping that out there, viewers aren't just saying, oh, because Luke's on the roster, SSG is, it should be an easier game. No, we have to remember the fact that top 3 when it comes to entries so far, you have Rampy and Folks in the mix, just like you said. Those are 2 very scary players, by the way. But Jesse, we know where these 2 teams are going to battle it out at. So when it comes to the map selection screen, I want you to break it down for us, man.
Yeah, let's take a look between these 2 squads. Obviously, some legacy teams constantly going out of the way. First, Clubhouse as well, so not going to see that map come back. Chalet, they don't want to try that. Coastline should be banned out. There we go. Oxygen don't want to go there. That's their perma ban, so makes sense. Then we get Cafe. This is a map that would have been pretty even. Villa leaves. That leaves just 1, and it's Oregon for the 2nd time today. I'm kind of surprised that this got through. For Oxygen, they didn't find a lot of success in the early days when this map came out, but they've been playing it a lot this year, and they look really good. Space Station, on the other hand, they lost to both Dark Zero and Disrupt Gaming at the major qualifier and the US finals respectively, and they had pretty poor performances at the Pro-Am. So recent results are all pretty bad for Space Station here. I'm shocked that they would come back, but it's been a while since we've seen it in official tournament play, so I have to imagine they've been working on it and they feel comfortable with it now.
More than likely, Jesse, they know a lot of things that we don't know coming into this matchup. But fellas,
definitely,
it's time for predictions. Jacob, you went first last time, so Jesse, I'm gonna give it to you. What do you think is going to come out on top here? Is it going to be Oxygen? Are they going to recover well from that week of upsets and win, or is it just business as usual for the world champs?
I think this is the hardest one for me to predict. I was really leaning towards Space Station ahead of this matchup. I think that their performance against TSM was really promising to see, and I probably want to go back with them, but Oregon is a map that I just really have liked Oxygen this season, and you haven't seen it from Space Station. That insecurity on how they will play here is gonna make me lean over towards OXG. So I'm gonna pick the guys in green. I think that Space Station have a very good chance, and they're probably underrated in this matchup, but I'm gonna stick with Oxygen.
Jacob, I'm not the only one that heard the stress from Jesse when he said, as he was
tough.
There was stress in his voice. Yeah, no, there was. But in this case, I do have to agree. I'm also going with the guys in green. And this is one of those matchups that, because it's so down the middle, it really did kind of come down to like which map was going to like swing one way or the other. Are we going to Clubhouse? Are we going to Oregon? Are we doing something crazy and going back to Chalet? In this case, we are going to a map that I also have been impressed with OXG's Oregon play. Even if they did lose it only last week to SQ, that was an 8-7 loss. Yeah, and it came so damn close. So for me, it was almost like, how do you pick between an SSG team that I don't want to be predicting against and an OXG team that still has more wins than that Space Station team? At the end of the day, the map kind of called it for me, so I think OXG can probably do this.
All right, so my prediction, and this is going to be a good one because I'm going to take the lead from this. It's Space Station Gaming. And if you want some hard-hitting analysis...
Okay, you're wrong.
If you want some hard-hitting analysis, this is going to be it. Rampy. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, all right. So
that's pretty good.
This matchup right here, Jacob. All right, I'm wondering if the lobby's ready. Production, let me know, Jacob. So this is it. Space Station Gaming going against Oxygen. You believe, along with Jesse, that Oxygen are gonna win. But you know what? I'm gonna hold on strong for my boys in space. SSG versus Oxygen right here. Casters, take it away.
Oh, it's a new one. We don't even get a proper introduction. We're just casters. Michael, that's it. We're not Intero, we're not Kicks, we're just casters. Well, thank you, Desk. I appreciate it. Shame you don't have any names.
Oh boy. So this match, casted by the Nameless, is pretty exciting and chock full of big names. Oxygen and SSG are both teams that I think most of the NAL audience have been waiting to see pop off as expected. He changes the roster for Oxygen coming into this stage. We got everybody really hyped up just to see what they're capable of. And it's kind of the inverse for SSG. A lot of confusion on their side. A lot of people wondering when they're going to find their groove. It doesn't seem, to me at least, like they have yet to find it. They did give TSM a battle for their money in the last Playday, but I think Space Station still are trying to find themselves.
Well, there are a number of questions that we're going to need answers to with these teams, but we have a question for you, as we do with every single matchup. For those of you that have watched OXG play so far, you'll know that somebody in the server had the unfortunate designation of being James Bond, while he himself is squaring up against the other player who happens to have the most plants in all of R6 NAL. Will it be Luke or Foxay to drop the most kills today? Who do you think will end up out-fragging one another? The desk seems to think that Luke is heating up. Foxay enters the day with a good amount of stats on entry, but not really much else. He's very average in most other categories. So that's the question for today. You can go to R6 Esports NA, that's our Twitter handle, and vote there. Who will have the most kills between the two of them?
It's going to be, I think, a big difference maker. Usually when you have players that are underperforming, the one that steps up the most, it just gives, a little extra ounce of effort. Can make all the difference in the match. So make sure you vote well. I'm looking forward to seeing if Luke is going to finally look comfortable on this roster. I think that's what, again, many people who are fans of Space Station have been waiting to see. He hasn't been playing, the absolute worst. Technically in this lobby, the overall statistically worst performer for both of these teams is going to be Yaga, actually. So a little bit more pressure on his shoulders, I suppose. As for Foxe actually is doing all right so far through this season. Not great. He's still towards the bottom of North America currently. But, I mean, we've got a lot of people who are dragging some weight on their ankles through these matches.
Both Yaga and Foxe are technically in the bottom 10 lowest ratings of all the players. And Yaga's had a pretty rough start of the season. Now, if you look at the stats, they are a bit skewed. Space Station have only played 3 games so far, as they had a bye in the very first round. OXG has not had the fortune yet. Good fortune or bad fortune, you decide that one. But they haven't had an opportunity to take time off yet. They've run the gauntlet against Xset, Mirage, Disrupt, and the Sonics. And frankly, if you look at the standings right now, Disrupt presently are in 5th. Mirage is in 8th. Xset are in 9th. And OXG have not necessarily blown these teams out of the water. The only game that wasn't particularly close was Mirage, which was a 7-3 victory on this exact map. So we'll get ready to load on into Oregon. This will be our 3rd matchup of the day, and we'll see what exactly can happen. There will be a couple stats that we'll keep our eyes on and see if anything really changes. As noted by the analysts, by the way, Michael, Yaga was performing quite poorly on Ashe. Well, OXG just banned Ashe. So Yaga's going to have to find a new operator, but additionally, either Fultz or Rampy on SSG will have to do the same on attack.
Yeah, I really want to quickly note that, before I get to that Ashe thing, I want to quickly note that this map, Oregon, has been played 3 times in recent history by both teams. 3 times each, and only 1 win for either team. It was Oxygen on Mirage, that 7-3 win that you talked about earlier. So, going into this map, there's, I guess, an expectation that Oxygen will have at least a slight edge in terms of recent performance on Oregon. Briefly, to talk also about that Ashe ban, I think it's sensible for Oxygen, because Ashe is played 93% of the time when available by Space Station, and has a pretty significant win percentage at 42%. So a very, I'd say, potent operator for SSG, whereas when you compare it to Oxygen, as you said, Yaga has a little bit of trouble getting that role to work for him. But hands down now, we'll go ahead and get into the actual action phase. And look at this, a Ying being 6-picked into by SSG.
Ying's been a very popular operator today. I mean, we saw her quite a lot in the matchup that just preceded this one between the Sonics and TSM, which went the full distance on this map. 15 rounds required between those two teams, and if you didn't see it, spoilers, the Sonics actually were able to wrestle first place away from TSM at the end of that matchup. Now, it's funny because the Sonics just last match before that against OXG also required 15 rounds to beat Oxygen. So 30 rounds in total played by the Sonics on this map. OXG obviously playing Oregon 2 of the last 4 play days suggests that they have quite a bit of experience on this. SSG have not played Oregon in the regular season yet, so we'll see exactly what they bring to the table. They love their Mira on most maps and on most bomb sites. Not surprising to see OXG get rid of her. This is a staple operator for an awful lot of Space Station's defenses, seen very predominantly on Clubhouse and Cafe in particular. So keep an eye on how that could potentially influence any form of defense for SSG. But OXG starting on defense first, they've done something a little bit out of the ordinary. Laxing is solo roaming down in the basement while they are defending the dorm's bomb sites on the 2nd floor.
If Laxton gets droned out, Vertical will stay, and he will be the one to confront the roam clear. If Vertical gets droned out, it'll be the opposite. It'll be Laxton who sticks around. But Fultz drones out Laxton and decides, yeah, never mind. Decides to go ahead and leave the clear over by Big Tower and start pushing with the rest of his team from the west over. Looks like it's going to be a downstairs clear, not all the way into the basement here for SSG. They just want to get control under the site, open up from below, maybe pick off 1 or 2 of the roamers, then start executing under the site. But so far, a slow execution. And Luke, interestingly, is over by Big Window, so they might not even work a master take into this. It might just be Big Window and downstairs. We've seen that before.
I'm curious to know what the plan is for Laxing. He likes these solo roams, and he can often play off of himself. He's not going to have a weapon that allows him to engage more than 1 or 2 at a time with that TCSG, nowhere near as formidable as it used to be. No Vector in the hands of the Goyo. So, and out goes a Valk Cam as OXG buckled down, expecting some form of presence at some point. Laxing will likely be recalled if he's not spotted beforehand. He was playing near the kitchen and then in meeting as well, and it looks like some damage will be done to Fultz, but Fultz isn't exactly sure of where. It's in fact the Jaeger of Vertical who enters the day a little bit shy of 50 kills. He could potentially hit it if things go the right way.
Laxing there to support Vertical, but Fultz is repositioned to the bottom of White Stairs, trying to make a play up the staircase, but the gas canisters from Kino are going to stop him in his tracks. 40 seconds left. Here come the Yin Candelas and the rush in from SSG. The plant by the big window going down from Luke. Nice kill from Rampy, and not the second. Yaga shuts him down. That's a very important frag, but now in the post plant, it's all looking very well good for the attackers. The reinforcements were placed correctly by the defense, but unfortunately for them, Luke was able to make the cross. Thinking nade, stopping Kino from rotating downstairs, and he's going to be able to play this post plant from below. Magic working out for him on that white staircase. Yaga gets a second kill, but he's going to have to find 2 more, and with 22 seconds left on that timer, it doesn't seem very likely. He'll be shut down by Thinking nade, who just cannot lose a fight on white stairs.
Well, a 2v1 with Yaga on very minimal HP, no utility to go off of. He just has to play with that MP5 in hand, and you know how tough it can be in a post plant, especially on that bomb site upstairs. The one thing that Luke has going for him is he's been the topic of great criticism from a lot of people, given the enormous spotlight that's on him so far this season, is he enters the day with the most plants of anybody. And because of that, Space Station's objective play has been some of the strongest, despite the fact that their record in the NAL is not particularly good. That round, objective play from SSG yet again. And the rest of the team seems to understand how to play around it. Number one, what is Ying so good at? Discombobulating. You throw a couple Candelas in, you can just barge right into the middle of the bomb site, and there's not a lot the defenders can do unless they're prepped and ready for it. And outside of the ADSs, I didn't see anything from OXG that really could have prevented a Ying from just bulldozing your defense. And when Rampy bursts into the bomb site, OXG had to scramble to try and stop them. There was the smoke cutting off the rotate onto big window. The attic player from OXG had to be recalled to try and watch the doorway because the player from OXG who was by the rotate towards big window couldn't really do anything. You're caught in the middle of a smoke tossed out by the attackers. Laxing is still relatively far off, and OXG just got overwhelmed. Even though SSG didn't have a ton of map control, they had the tools to deal with what parts of the map they needed. And because of that, OXG struggled to retake a bomb site that is notoriously difficult to retake when you lose it. OXG have clearly learned from their mistake, though, because one of the most powerful operators to counter any kind of smoke, stun, or flash play happens to be a Warden. And Yaga, who was the best player for OXG last round, that's the operator he's going to go on to. I don't know what Vertical was thinking, though, but if he does want to hit that fabled 50 kill mark for the season, he's going to need to be a little bit better than he has been so far, as he's the opening pick very early in round number 2.
Now, that is unfortunate. I think just a random spray through the wall by Fultz. I didn't see a drone on the top down, but my feed is somewhat pixelated, so it's possible there was one there. Either way, whether that was a call or random happenstance for Fultz, the early frag is going to definitely be good advantage for SSG. With the control on the west side not being contested anymore, SSG can just swoop in and start applying pressure vertically to the site. You could see that all of the Oxygen players that remain are going to bunker down on that site. No extension whatsoever. That's probably the right call right now. They need to get favorable engagements in order to get this man count back in their favor. And you're not going to get those if you try and throw away all of your positioning advantage.
That first pick has just bought you so much time and so much map control, and a very quick drone from SSG and will expose the fact that, or from SSG rather, will expose that OXG are mostly focused now on this bomb site. You can see all 4 of the silhouettes. They're hunkered down and expecting the push towards the site. And the map control that they hold is basically just a few avenues into the bomb sites, one of which happens to be Freezer, which is where Yaga is positioned. That whole Freezer wall has been opened up. If the attackers can take control of that, they're going to have a long line of sight leading into the bomb site, as well be able to pressure the back of the other bomb site. That's a very strong position to be in, and I would be shocked if OXG gives it up that easily.
Pillar being droned out here by SSG. Yaga trying to challenge Blue, but that's not an easy fight to take, and there's nobody currently exposed to him. Smoke grenades going in, but luckily there's a Warden on Yaga, and he lands a nice collateral. Rampy and Bosco go down as they line up. Easy peasy for Yaga, who is coming alive in this match with his 3rd kill in the round. He's got an ace lined up for him if he could just land the shots. There's the 4th. Fultz now alone against seemingly just Yaga as he absolutely destroys SSG. 13 seconds left for Fultz to try and stop the ace from happening. Diffuser down inside of E-Box. Yaga wants it. You can see how antsy he is. The question is, will Fultz give it to him? The answer, no. Kino, a little bit of team damage there to add insult to injury. No ace for Yaga, but a 4K that certainly single-handedly won the round.
It would have been yet another ace for Oxygen as Kino got one on the very first round of his very first professional match, which was an impressive thing to watch for those of you that recall. What a way to welcome yourself and get welcomed rather to this level of competition. But Yaga enters the day with the tied for the 3rd lowest rating in the entire NA League, and right now with his stats being what they are, he's very clearly trying to make up for that. He's presently 7-1 through 2 rounds, which is a hell of a scoreline, regardless of what operator you're playing on. And given the fact that Yaga was playing Warden, in many ways, he's going to quarterback this defense. It's unfortunate for SSG that the collateral happens inside of Blue. Now, where Yaga was positioned, pillars, right by E-Box, means that the only real way to flush out a Warden or anybody playing in that spot is to swing into the hallway by Freezer, which was being watched by OXG, is to hot drop through E-Box, which was also being watched by OXG, or by potentially getting lucky on those back stairs. But the problem was that Yaga was playing off of the pillar that did not expose himself to the stairs where Thinking Nade was. SSG were largely powerless to deal with that spot, and teams have talked about how pivotal a good hold on pillars is, because you can control essentially most angles into the bomb site with the exception of Freezer. I had mentioned how important and how critical holding Freezer is for teams on defense. SSG essentially ignored that part of the map, and because of that, they got contained around pillar. Pillar's basically the fulcrum, the axis between the 2 bomb sites and where they're going to push for SSG. And there was no real strategy from SSG, it seemed like, to deal with the player on pillars.
Yaga feeling himself right now, and he's going to enable some aggressive play down at the bottom of White Stairs. Now, he just wants to shoot drones and maybe punish somebody from SSG that's being a little bit too aggressive on the entry. But none of that's going to happen right now. Space Station are being very cautious, especially given that they know they're facing Yaga, who, if you take a look at the scoreboard, is actually the only player on his team with any kills across 2 rounds. You don't really see that very often, but it's neat, that's for sure. Hey Parker, we've got a quad 7. If that, are we going? Can we do that? Four O's and a 7. Does it?
I don't know if we're allowed to do that. I don't think it works that way, but I feel like we're trying to force the Bond narrative a little bit too much here. I don't know about you. We're working it into just about everything.
I know.
John made a great call, and then everybody's like, I want in on this. I want in on the Bond train.
It's kind of funny, but at the same time, yeah, mostly just the Yaga has not been shut down yet by SSG.
No, and the rest of the team hasn't really needed to do much. I was kind of surprised with how little SSG was able to do after they got that pick onto vertical. They had map control within, with 1 minute off the clock, and they could have very easily been able to drone it out and just pressure multiple different avenues to the bomb sites, but opted not to do that anyway. That was then. This is now. Round number 3 for OXG is going to be a second defensive dorms upstairs. Nobody has died just yet, though Kino taking a bunch of damage and a Goyo shield had exploded in front of him. It actually looks like both of the Goyo shields are now down for the count. So good news for SSG. You've used your utility quite well, but you're going to have to do very similar to what you did before. And the lineup for SSG is prepped and ready to replicate round number 1.
Gas canisters once again at the top of white. We've seen this before. Or about 40 seconds they start coming out, and the Candelas follow shortly after. This time there's a clash by big window, but I'm not sure if it's really going to help that much if you're blind. Blindly firing the ability is somewhat working out, slowing things down, but now it's just Foxay, and he gets 1, but not 3, as he will get a second on the planter. Faults with the final kill. SSG, a successful rush into the site off the Candelas.
Well, we got to see what exactly happened with that Ying. It wasn't Rampy on the operator, it was Bosco instead. They had Rampy on another side of the map playing as Yana for intel to try to get both Thinky Nate and Fultz into the map, and then obviously thrown himself in with her clones. And then having grenades on the board is great. If you looked simply at what was being brought from SSG, they had those Candelas, they had the smokes, they had grenades. There was so much utility burn on SSG's side, not to mention the flashbangs on their own. And I like that Oxygen brought a clash to deal with that. There's a couple different things that you can do if you know that somebody's going to vault in that main window. Frost is an operator that can work right off the bat. Putting 1 or 2 welcome mats under big window tend to be a very popular thing you'll see at high level competitive, but you won't necessarily see in professional play. It is an option. Clash is another good one too, but as you pointed out, what can you really do if you're blind? You're going to simply be overrun. Ying is faster than you are. You're going to be backpedaling. You're not going to be able to see anything, and a single knife is going to knock that shield away and expose your legs to what could end up being certain death. It wasn't in this case, and Fox did his best to stop the play off of the window, but the rest of SSG collapsed in. They were able to take Attic, they were able to take White Stairs, and though we didn't see it, 1 by 1, OXG lost their gunfights. They ended up getting boxed in with some of the players just simply being inside of the kids' dorms part of the map, as shown on your screen right now, only able to come out through a single door in which anybody on White Stairs is going to be very keenly watching and welcoming you, because it's about as free of a kill as you're going to get when chaos ensues.
So, no longer confident in that top floor, and rightfully so. Oxygen have been struggling there. The Candela play from SSG is just perfect, as was eloquently explained by Parker. So, meeting is not necessarily a go-to site. It's definitely a tertiary. You're going to go here because you have to, usually no other reason. But I guess Oxygen are feeling forced given their performance on that top floor. Rampy gonna get rid of the shield on the big tower staircase. That was an interesting shield, definitely left out to dry. Possibly trying to facilitate some aggressive play from Kino, who's playing currently in the bottom floor. There's some work he could have done with that, to be sure, but it's still odd. It might have also been to force a vault on the staircase. That makes more sense to me, at least. And, well, no force vault now. SSG have control of T3 and T2, and they're looking to turn that into full tower control so they can launch an attack into meeting.
I like what we're seeing out of Yaga's position by the bomb chassis in meeting. He's got 2 ADSs by him, and they've opened up a portion of that wall on stage so that he can watch towards the doorway. Now, he obviously is susceptible to being pushed from upstairs in Attic, and that's where Fultz is right now. He doesn't have any hard destruction at his disposal, but the hatch that's in there can very easily be opened up. That would put Yaga in a bit of a tricky spot where he'd have to engage possibly 2 separate angles. He does have some support. Kino is downstairs in the spot that's affectionately referred to as Harry Potter on backstairs, and Vertical is watching Flag, or Split as it's referred to as.
Yaga trying to pressure into Green Hall to dissuade anyone from SSG from peeking that. However, nobody's there right now. Space Station are primarily focused on their objective play. I mean, well, yeah. Oh, and look at this. They've gotten the drop open in Attic. This is huge. ADS is done away with, which means the Incandelas and Smokes are going to be much more useful in this round. And meeting has effectively been pushed back for Oxygen. There's no control for the defenders here, or they're going to have to rely on their utility to stop a plant in this situation. Laxing does have a C4 he can toss up from the hatch, and Kino just used his last gas canister. So with 30 seconds left, SSG have full control and good setup for an execute.
And there goes a grenade as SSG are going to look to try to drop through this attic hatch. A number of bodies prepped and ready. If somebody from OXG is able to hit their shots, well, they would do it a great favor for their team. Vertical cut off and split as now SSG climbs themselves atop this scoreboard ladder. Bosco on Ying yet again causing confusion as Yaga doesn't know where to go. He's trapped inside a split right now. Diffuser going down, but Vertical swings out. He's good enough for a single kill. Objective for SSG goes in favor with Yaga on the flank, swiftly ending Rampy. Still plenty of pings there as Yaga does a little bit of damage. Laxing sounds like he might have been knocked over by an air jab, but some form of sight in the bomb site is significantly helping OXG. Yaga's gonna have to do it all on his own. He takes down Luke and he'll go for the disable. Why not? Pros don't fake. Pistol out. Beautiful shot onto Fultz. He doesn't know where the other is. Thinking Nade's just gotta simply wait about 10 seconds here, but he'll find Yaga and there will be no miracle for OXG. Space Station, after getting the objective down, will pick up their third round through the 4 that we've played so far.
Wow, Yaga can't seem to miss today. He is fired up, revving on all cylinders, and really upset that he currently is at the bottom of the NAL statistically. I don't think he wants to stay there. At the same time, however, I mean, SSD managed to shut down the rest of his team around him, and we saw some major mistakes, especially with Vertical when pushing through that smoke. Yeah, he managed to get the Ying. That's fantastic. But nothing else came of that push, and he had the planter fully exposed and the cover not looking his way. There was an opportunity for Vertical to win that round before it even really started on the execute. It just didn't happen. Sometimes you can't capitalize. The push over by tower as well stopped by the Nomad air jabs. Thinking Nate has been such an integral player for his team through these 4 rounds. He has been always watching the flank, always locking down the rotates, and always clutching up in that 1v1 at the end of the round. Tactical timeout here for Oxygen. They're going to try and figure out their next move. I think this is the right time to call one. It's a little bit early in the match, yes, but you need to get at least 2 rounds in any given half, and ideally 3 in the defensive half of Oregon.
Yeah, that's the most troubling sign for me is Oxygen is the benefit of the better side. Most players will tell you how good Oregon is on defense. I mean, all you need to do is look at the SQ-TSM matchup that just happened. It was a defensive bonanza with the attackers. Other than overtime, the attackers only winning 2 of the 12 rounds in regulation, defense winning the other 10. That is a staggering difference between the sides, and it's what we've come to expect, especially when Wamai was up, especially when Aruni saw some play earlier on previous matches of Oregon. There's a lot to cut through here on the attackers side of things, and they're doing a magnificent job of it right now. Through these 4 rounds, Space Station have got all 4 of the opening duels breaking in their favor. The analyst desk talked about Rampy and Fultz before we got into the matchup with how good they've been on entry. Rampy started the day at a +6, Fultz at a +5. So far, SSG is a perfect 4-0 on that entry. I noted how Luke was doing such a magnificent job of getting the diffuser down. Well, Space Station so far have gotten 2 diffusers planted so far in these 4 rounds, in addition to the fact that they've been relatively quick to take map control on most of these rounds, even though there was one where they didn't really do much with it. So SSG so far really haven't done anything that's made me doubt their strength on this map, and OXG, I really hope for their sake that the timeout works in their favor so we do end up getting a more competitive match.
Yeah, I agree, Parker. The only round that Oxygen won was because... Ooh. That's my bad. I was about to start talking about Yaga. I was going to say the only round that Oxygen's won is because Yaga dropped a 4K. And for some reason, he's in Security Hall. And there goes the only player with more than 2 kills on your whole roster. So that's rough for Oxygen. It's now or never for the rest of the team to wake up and start getting the kills that we know they're capable of getting. Because if this goes to 4-1, I mean, even if it ends in 4-2 on the half, that's still SSG taking a commanding lead in this map.
The only thing that SSG is going to have to deal with is the fact that there's a Wamai ban on the board and a Mira ban. And, I mean, they picked Wamai, and Mira is not crucial to defending Oregon. Plenty of teams do it when Mira is banned, so I have no doubt that SSG will be okay. Obviously, it could hinder them, but enough to tilt the defense away and make it an attacker-sided, I guess, matchup for OXG? I don't think so. Right now, for Oxygen, this is a worrying spot to be in.
Good hard destruction from SSG. Opening up that E-box drop is going to help a back take should the attack decide to commit to it. They're going to also get the laundry drop as well. Probably security drop is open also. No matter what, the vertical is in favor of SSG. They can now pick and choose where they want to execute. They can come from behind, they can come from up front, and they'll make a decision based on what they have to deal with like, for example, this hard destruction trying to push Kino off of tarps.
It's likely the sound of the execute yet again. SSG have used smokes on attack to just cause so many problems and split OXG in half as well, with players having to play off of spots that they didn't want to be in. You could see Oxygen going for a full rotate as they try to head through Elbow and through Blue. I don't know if Fox8 was stuck or if there were some issues with rubber banding, but regardless, he's going to just post up in his position. First Nitro Cell goes down. It only claims 1 so far, as this laundry defense looks mighty good for OXG. Another Nitro Cell tossed out, but Fox8 will have to just do the work on his own as it doesn't hit anything whatsoever. He's been reinforced out. This is do or die, and he'll have to fight his way out of this spot in Elbow. He's good enough for both the kills as they line up in front of him mid-reload, but Thinking Nade, with 4 seconds left, has absolutely nowhere to go. That's going to be the round for OXG, as Laxing does the right thing by shutting down Thinking Nade and not letting him live through the remaining 1 second of that round.
Nice pre-fire there from Laxing, just fishing for anything he could get. Thinking Nade has been locking up those flanks and really pulling it together for his team, clutching up hard, but I mean, that was a difficult prospect for a clutch, that's for sure. And Oxygen need that round. They really did. It's good that they've got it now. And also, they did it without Yaga, him being the first pick. SSG continuing their flawless entry so far through this map. While Yaga did die early, we saw the rest of Oxygen wake up like we know they could. The execute from SSG was a full commitment to the flank, to the backside, over by Blue, Tower Stairs. Interestingly, the Blue control was just too lightly emphasized for SSG. They put, I think, 1 person outside of Blue, and that person essentially accomplished nothing through the round. They even effectively got free elbow control because there was no shield there. They reinforced it off. SSG should be able to take that and turn it into a pincher on the site itself, but they struggled to get pillar control. When they eventually did get it, they were getting punished for it non-stop. The C4s flying from Oxygen, the guns coming alive, and then they couldn't even get elbow because Fox8 was just, I mean, he's just winning his ones. I don't know what else to say. If you're gonna corner yourself on elbow, if you can win the fights, it's not that big of a deal, I guess.
I mean, both of those attacks on the laundry played out so similarly. SSG got the opening pick early against Vertical back in round number 2. They still stalled out through the mid-round and all attacked in the same direction, which was Blue and backstairs. I mean, obviously they wanted to drop E-Box, but they got slaughtered in Blue by Yaga on the round that Yaga got the 4K. Funny enough, on round number 5, OXG ends up losing the first duel as well. SSG wins that one, but then again, SSG doesn't really accomplish all that much through the mid-round. They struggle, and this time they go all in on E-Box. 3 separate players drop into that electrical box from meeting, and they all get picked off, first by a C4, and then by some gunplay leading from pillars. Fox8 holds himself up inside of Blue, and he just manages to knock down everybody who engages with him because SSG don't have any utility, and at that point, with only 15 seconds left, they're not spread out well enough to be able to do anything other than just go for a single fight in that one direction, dry. And SSG loses it to Fox, in which it basically becomes a 50-50. But again, the story, as much as we're going to fixate on the last couple seconds, the story for SSG is, once again, how slow they are after getting map control when attacking downstairs.
So Yaga is set up to impact trick this, but it's being watched from below, and Fultz will push Yaga off the wall, not allowing the impact tricking to happen. So he's going to lose most of his HP, and the wall will be opened up. That's good coordination from SSG. C4 from the basement, trying to go all the way up to the top floor. It lands, but it doesn't kill anyone. Laxing with a very nice angle through that drop down will miss all of his shots. and start to reposition. Now, it's not the end of the world that all of these tools Oxygen are employing to get kills are not getting kills, because there's only a minute left in the round. So while SSG has the wall open, they've got good control, they're going to start running out of time here very shortly. And there's still enough utility in the pockets of OXG to stop this attack cold in its tracks.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning is already starting out with how much HP Yaga has lost. This is similar to the last time around where Yaga was just almost mortally wounded. Interestingly enough, the star player for OXG so far this season, Kino, he hasn't really done anything so far. He's just chilling. But as Smoke, he's going to be especially crucial. The very first blood for OXG is Laxings, as it's been a previous 5-round streak for SSG. Pandemonium and Confusion reigns. Guns coming alive from both. Luke narrowly gets the diffuser down, but he's swatted away by Foxay. That MP5, excellently done. 2 kills for him. Fultz thanks him very well, and now Fultz will have even more to do as, well, he's going to have to find the remaining players from OXG. Gets one on the vertical. Case is down inside of Attic. And there's not a lot of time left. Fultz knows how difficult this is going to be. He picks it up, and a jiggle peek won't outdo Kino, who finally gets his first kill. That first half, it tightened up in a hurry, and the advantages that SSG had evaporate, because we're going to the second half tied 3-3.
So the timeout turns out to be exactly what Oxygen needed. 3-3, definitely not ideal for Oxygen, but way better than it was shaping up to be. I mean, we were at a point there, Parker, where I thought to myself, Oxygen's going to be lucky if they shave off 1 or 2 rounds in the first half. They managed 3. That's pretty darn good. So finally figuring out the formula on the top floor was the key. But it was also the fact that SSG didn't bring the same attack that was working for them. SSG, when executing on top floor, they cleared out below on the west side, did some vertical to get rid of the utility in sight, and then executed with Ying through the big window. SSG did that twice. It worked magnificently twice. And then that last round of the first half, they decided to go for a master take, and it falls flat. So I guess now Space Station knows that strategy is non-viable, but I mean, a little late for that as we go into half 2. SSG defending the bottom floor as their first site.
This has been a very friendly bomb site for the defenders, and we'll see if SSG decides to run with anything a little bit different. They're going to forego the Warden. If you look at the lineup from OXG, that's probably a smart idea. There really isn't any smoke or flashes that they're going to have to deal with. Laxing's 3 flashes from Nomad, those are likely going to be used on burning ADSs, and that'll be about it, I would reckon. So we'll see exactly where Ramby puts them and whether Laxing is going to be on that particular role. But I mean, then again, it's Laxing. He could be on the other side of the map until the final 5 seconds for all we know, so we can just speculate as best as we can. Anyway, SSG obviously very keen to keep some bodies on this first floor. Like with every single map we see, you usually have a roamer on another floor. There are a couple exceptions, but by and large, you're going to want some presence upstairs. With how good SSG have been as a team to secure the opening pick in all of their matches so far, a strong roam game can be enough to win them just a simple round or 2, just regardless of what OXG is capable of doing through the mid to late round.
Now, early kill here as Fultz gets Yaga above. Poor drone work from Oxygen as they don't let Yaga get anything in this first round of the second half. That's your top performer shut down. Now Foxay is going to have to pick up that slack. He has been doing that in the last couple rounds, but still not ideal for Oxygen. And Fultz is still above. He's going to keep on roaming. Kino will get his second kill for this map. Down goes Luke, who is yet to find his first. And freezer control well in hand for Kino. He's all the way up here along with the rest of his team. It's a front take, and there's too many roamers for SSD. Not enough guns on site, and Foxay from Laundry will shut down Bosco on the rotate. There goes all your smokes. Kino gets his second in the round. Down goes Rampy. C4 from Thinking Nade will land, and Fultz still on the roam. Coming back to site is able to get one on the flank. He may be able to get another one shortly, but Vertical peeks him. Great awareness. And now it's just Thinking Nade with a whole minute left on the clock, who has to stop Kino and Freezer and Vertical by Laundry from isolating the plant. But it's not even going to get there. Kino, the third and final for this round. A great round from him, and way too much roam presence from SSG.
You got to think that Thinking Nate had probably bad intel there, because I don't know why he would have pushed up so aggressively when you don't know what the status of Freezer is, right? I mean, it's relatively common that if you're executing on the front of Laundry, you're going to want to put somebody in Freezer at some point. I mean, all we can do is really guess. But there are a lot of times where it's very easy to sit in the cheap seats and say, well, why would you do that? I mean, Michael, I don't know if you know this, but Bolo just played, and there were a lot of cheap seats for some of the people in Twitch chat. It. So it's entirely possible that people are going to rain down on Thinking Nade's parade and say, you know, well, I wouldn't have done that. It's entirely possible that he was acting off of intel, that both of them were in the front. Who knows? We've seen players at this level have issues with communicating and have had issues with figuring out the locations of their enemies. At that point, Thinking Nate in a 1v2, he doesn't really have the leisure of time. He has to make a play at some point, as most defenders will. He's boxed out of the bomb site. He doesn't want to re-engage through E-box just in case there is somebody on that hatch above, or just in case somebody's watching through the narrow doorway you have to go through. And then you're going to have to swing around that shelving unit and the bomb chassis right there. It's a tough spot to play. If you know that nobody's in Freezer, it's a sensible move to push down the Freezer hallway. So I understand to a certain extent why he would do it, but there was a lot more to the round than just the final 5 seconds.
So SSG going upstairs instead of trying their luck a second time on the bottom floor. The kit for Oxygen, solid for an upstairs take. They can incorporate an attic push if they want to because they have the Maverick. Vertical trying to pressure Armory. I'm not sure exactly why, but then again, I'm also not sure why Rampy's playing an Armory. This is a very dangerous position to play, and it allows you to be cut off, and it looks like it's because of the trophy hold. Double ADS is inside a trophy supporting a shield on the doorway. Luke's going to try and hold here for as long as possible. Space Station just want to delay. But this is a major risk. This position is make it or break it for the round. If Rampy and Luke die here, then they'll cost hard for their team. And even there, look at that. 2 minutes still on the clock. So yeah, a 1 minute wasted, I guess. More like 20 seconds. And you're using most of your ADSs, one of your shields to do it. I think Oxygen will take that trade, to be honest.
I mean, I would. And they're very quick now to want to pounce into this bomb site, buying themselves some time just by Master, waiting for Ace, Kino rather, on that roll as Ace to get the call to begin at the wall. But right now, I think he wants to wait a little bit. As you can see, OXG have presence on the other side of the map. Rampy might as well be miles away, but if he can go for a jump out here, there is a possibility he could secure something. It's 10 shots to break open that barricade, and that's exactly what he's going to do, just waiting very patiently as he could spring out and surprise OXG. SSG is aware of what's happening, and you can see that they've got the yokai drones in place. Down below is Thinking Nade. His sole job is going to be to try to defang this execute when it happens. Meanwhile, Rampy, who we thought might have gone for a jump out in small tower, is now playing safely on white stairs.
Nice information gathering here from the drones in the site. Oxygen are going to be ready when they go for the actual execute. But there's still the yokai drones in play here for Luke. So he's going to be able to use those to gather a lot of information on the push. Lead off kill this time goes to Oxygen. Down goes Rampy, but Thinking Nate answers back almost immediately. Vertical on the floor now, but Oxygen has managed to make their way into the site. Kino's on default, and he's going for a plant with Yaga to cover. Laxing will get one elsewhere. Yokai drone stopped dead in his tracks, but it's a C4 from below to stop that plant before it can finally get down. From big window, Luke will finally find the scoreboard. Welcome, Luke. It's been a long time without you. Foxay on big window might be able to win that fight if he vaults in, but it's very dangerous. He's limited on time, and it's Fultz from below once again putting in work in this round. Laxing from the attic push, not going to be able to really do much here, but he will at least get one kill, not a second. Thinking Nade shuts him down, and SSG will get their first defensive round.
Well, this is going to be as close of a matchup as I imagine we saw with TSM and Sonics, and it didn't look like it at the time, and this one didn't really look like it was going to be a close one either. I mean, there's still plenty of time for one of these teams to run away with it, but we are at the point now when it is 4-4 that usually we're going to go to the bitter end. Oregon maps, they love all 12 rounds. They love overtime. With how this matchup tends to work, or how most matchups tend to work on Oregon, it's not really much of a surprise. OXG's strat, by the way, was based off of the fact that they thought they had more control than they did. Thinking Nade was down below with that nitro cells. I had pointed out just seconds before it happened, Thinking Nade's sole job was to blow up the diffuser before it could get planted, or at least right after it got planted. His job should be to stop it ahead of time so that you don't have to worry about the clock running against you in a post plant. SSG get the call off of that because they assess that there's somebody playing an attic, there's somebody playing by closet. What are they possibly doing with that crossfire? Well, it's because they know that there's going to be the diffuser getting planted inside of that games room. And it's a very common spot. Even if the nitro cell isn't in that particular corner, the explosion is usually big enough to kill most people in that side of the room. So it doesn't need to be exactly underneath whoever's going for the plant. OXG went for it, and I don't know if they were anticipating that there would have been the denial underneath, but if they were, they needed to be quicker to get in and get somebody right back on top of that diffuser to start again while there was still potential for a crossfire. The problem is that once they lost their army, Fox A is at big window. You're not just vaulting into big window with no utility because somebody's going to kill you. It's completely foolish. It ended up being from below, but I mean, it can very easily just be whichever player is by the big window as well. And then Laxing was off on his own in attic. It didn't leave either of those players in a particular spot to play off of each other very well.
So last round, we welcomed Luke to the scoreboard, but it's worth noting that he's not the only one on SSG that's been struggling to get frags. Bosco, a player that you typically expect to get those kills in abundance, is still working on a donut. And that's odd for Bosco. And it is a major difference maker here for SSG. Now, obviously, everyone has bad games. But still, you got to wonder what the score might look like if he were showing up in the same way that some of the other people in this lobby are. And if he can show up later in this map, which is totally possible, he could wake it at any moment, how much more dominant SSG will be.
It's not a given, by the way, that anybody's going to wake up. I just want to get ahead of that because Yaga had some struggles on his previous match, and there's a couple underperformers, in fact, in this server, two of them on SSG, and I do think it is correct to point out that SSG is dead even with Oxygen, despite the fact that Luke and Bosco have one kill between them. But SSG have been able to make space when they were on attack. On defense, we've got a couple more rounds to see if they're able to replicate it, because right now it does look like it's semi more favorable to the attackers than a typical Oregon matchup. That bodes well for OXG.
I love the use of the Yana. I think when Yana first came out, there was a lot of question about how useful she was going to be at a pro level, but we've seen her used to great effect. And that's so much information that was just gathered on Evil Eyes, barbed wire positioning, where the defenders are actually playing, just by one Yana clone running into the site. And with that information, Oxygen are set up very well to execute on this site. They also just heard the elbow get reinforced. There's a mute jammer, so it's unlikely they'll get that wall open.
No, and SSG knows that the execute is going to come from the pillar's direction. Even though a Maverick means OXG could possibly poke some holes in this defense. Bosco will try to defend against it as best he can, but the SMG-11 is not going to be a formidable tool in this particular way. It sounds like they might have actually been able to open up elbow now, as Kino will reaggress with Vertical and Yaga at a completely different part of the map. So OXG are just seconds away from being able to clamp down on the bomb site. Fox A trying for a plant, but he loses half of his HP and he has to stop his effort largely in vain. Everybody taking their lumps. There's 5 seconds left and nobody is dead. But OXG will dominate the kill feed. A team kill from SSG with Thinking Nade in a 1v3. He tries to soldier through the smoke, but can't do it. Yaga shuts him down on a round that can only be described as a total and complete mess. Once again, Oxygen take it after SSG take it, and I have a feeling we're going to see all 12 rounds, Michael, between these two teams.
Oxygen, the facilitators of that mess, were the better team in that particular round, and I agree with you, Parker. I think we're probably going to go the full distance here. At least that's the way it's seeming. So first of all, I must say, I stand corrected on elbow. I saw 40 seconds left, and I knew there was a Maverick there, but I just didn't think that Oxygen would be so assertive with their Maverick positioning, and they followed the Maverick holes in the wall up in like 5 seconds. There was such impressive time management by Oxygen when we were starting to ramp up for the execution. I cannot believe that they got that wall open so completely, and that pushed all of SSG back It stopped the control in sight.
Attackers need to locate
And Rampy saying that they couldn't 6-pick. Happened to Oxygen too. So it seems to be... Oh, that's a new one. I've never seen that one before. We'll see what the admins...
Well, actually, you didn't see it, Michael. You read it?
I read it with my eyes, Parker.
See, because the 6-pick didn't happen, so you didn't actually see it.
I read it with my eyes. Yes.
I just want to be clear.
Okay. I should be specific. I did not see the bug because I couldn't see the bug, and I've never heard of it happening before.
Well, the ask has been made now by the teams, and we'll see if it's going to be answered by the admin. Until then, we just kind of play on. Since the request has come in, it's not like the round, for example, they're going to say, oh, it's too late in the round. It's entirely possible that such an early ask will result in it. But I do say this every single time. Our interpretation of the rulebook is only so strong. Neither of us are admins, and most importantly, admins do have discretion to potentially amend a rule on the fly given context and circumstances. So all we can do is speculate, as most of you at home can speculate as well. In the meantime, no answer suggests play on. So both of these teams will continue on through this round as if nothing had changed. And if something does change, you'll hear it from us.
So I was speaking of hearing it from us. We are going to rehost. Just got the call just now. So the rehost is being called for us. It's now being called in game. The round will be nullified. Obviously, we're going to pick up where we left off. Score 5-4 favor Oxygen right now. Oxygen on attack. SSG defending the bottom floor. And yeah, calling in for the rehost. So it's just starting now. A little bit confusing for the players because the rehost was called halfway through the round, but the call is final and the lobby is already exited out.
Well, we're going to go back to the 10th round and see what exactly happens. Now, I don't know what the confusion was there between the teams as to whether or not they wanted it or expected it, but I mean, OXG could have called for a rehost earlier on. They didn't. It is also worth noting that as of right now, the rulebook, unless it is changed, the rulebook specifies that you get one rehost per map per team. And this is very important because if it's something like a 6th pick and it's not integral, you don't necessarily want to burn your rehost on that, because what happens if there's a game-breaking glitch later on or a player drops out? Now, being on LAN, obviously, it's a different environment. There might be different rules given that it is on LAN, and sometimes computers crash, and you know that a player didn't just accidentally, wink, wink, knock their power button to get a rehost. In this particular instance, we're just going to have to go with the admins here and see what happens. It's going to be, because of that, a technical timeout, not a tactical timeout. Regardless, this is going to work well for both teams. Oxygen took their timeout at the conclusion of the 4th round. They won the next 2 rounds because of it. In fact, they won the next 3 because they won their first round on attack. Spacestation hasn't taken a timeout yet. They're going to be able to recoup and regroup after that 9th round loss that they just went through. And OXG are going to be able to prepare for what they now know to be the particular bomb site and maybe even a particular setup that SSG was laying out.
And we'll see what happens when we pick it up. A little bit of a brief disclaimer there on what was just talked about. Parker's right. Each team only gets 1 technical rehost per match, but technically this rehost that we're on right now is an admin rehost, which doesn't affect teams' rehosts in any way. Luke having fun with his hand warmers there. I hope they're really warm. I want to, everybody tells me it's really cold in that arena. And I want to go there and feel it for myself because everybody's always wearing sweaters. The hand warmers are everywhere. I really wonder what temperature it is in that, on that stage.
Well, I'm not entirely certain either, by the way, but it can't be colder than the sunny beaches of Canada. So
Sunny beaches in Canada?
Like at least for 1 month a year.
It's the opposite here. We got 1 month of cold. And when I say cold, I mean like maybe 60 Fahrenheit, and then the rest of the year it's sunny and warm.
I mean, listen here, Californian. You take your blue skies and blue water privilege and you get out. All right. But I will say that the times that I've been in Las Vegas have all been in the fall. In fact, the 3 times that I've been to Las Vegas have been in November or December. I have never been there outside of those 2 months, and I found the weather to be quite tolerable. Now, I've also been told that it can reach upwards of 35 to 40 degrees Celsius, which can be upwards of 110 degrees Fahrenheit. That's just plain uncomfortable. I remember when we were in Rio, we had to walk across the street to the Olympic Stadium in which the finals were being played. This was a 7-minute walk at most. But we're doing it in a suit. It felt, by the time that I got into that stadium, walking outside for 7 minutes in the Brazilian summer heat, humidity as high as ever, it honestly felt like I had at some point taken a shower with my clothes on when I got into the stadium. Thank God for air conditioning, because boy, oh boy, that was
see, the problem there with your visit in LA was that you were visiting LA. You should try the Bay Area. The only
Las Vegas is not LA, Michael.
Sorry, you said Las Vegas? I thought you were talking about... Oh, okay, my bad.
I was talking about Las Vegas because I don't know if you know this, Michael. That's where the teams are right now. They're in Las Vegas.
I thought you said Los Angeles. Okay, well, either way, same problem. It's hot there.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as many bombs.
I remember that Brazilian walk. Felt like we were roasted in an oven when we were done.
Fun fact, every single time I've been to the Bay Area, with the exception of obviously not the full Bay Area, but every time I've been to San Francisco, it has been almost exactly 16 degrees Celsius every single time I've been there. Actually, all times a year. I like that it seems like San Francisco is always the same temperature.
It pretty much is, yeah.
Every time. It's regulated by the ocean. There's a nice breeze.
The Bay Area in California is the only other place, apart from the Mediterranean Ocean, where there's the Mediterranean climate. And the only other place in the Northern Hemisphere, anyway. So it's like... Yeah, it's like the same temperature all the time. It's either more sunlight, more breeze, or less breeze, less sunlight, and it all kind of just balances out.
Every single time I visit San Francisco, I have to quote Mark Twain and say that the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. And I feel like that is one of the best observations I have probably ever heard about temperature. And you can talk to most Canadians, they'll tell you that we are fascinated by the weather, because in certain parts of this country, and you can ask Jesse Chick as an Albertan, if you don't like the weather, wait an hour is advice you get when you get off the plane.
Actually, when I've been to Canada, I've seen like fields go from snowy to like completely snowless in like a few hours. It's weird.
Oh yeah, it'll snow and then an hour later, all of it's gone. But anyway, let's talk about what's happening on our screen, because we're through the rehost and now we're into the action, or at least we're into the live round. Very minimal action has happened here as SSG are going to attempt the laundry supply room bomb sites for the 3rd time through their 4 defenses. They have so far been completely and wholly unsuccessful. And OXG have been able to rack up some big round wins off of it. And if SSG don't change something up, it'll be match point for OXG, as they would go 3-0 on this bomb site, which could be a pretty big strategic blunder from Space Station.
Well, so far it's just the waiting here. SSG chilling in sight, not really stressing their positioning. They're going to reposition some ADSs and some shields, but other than that, just waiting out the execution. Oxygen have decided to go for a main take down through laundry, staircase, and freezer. A little ahead on the laundry side. Only Foxay and freezer means that if he gets picked off, that's a lot of the pressure from this attack alleviated for the defense. So Foxay needs to be careful with his life. The rest of the setup, though, looking good for both teams. Shields dealt with, ADS is repositioned. This could go either way.
And OXG are really intent to push this, just as they did last time. Rampy, good enough for the entry there technically, as he downs Vertical, finishes him off. Rampy's gone, and now both teams on even footing. Bosco gives it back in favor of SSG, as Luke goes back at it himself, and OXG realize that their go for broke strategy with a minute to go maybe not have been the smartest idea. Worse for OXG is that they have surrendered the diffuser inside of the middle of the bomb site. Yaga tries to peek Bosco, but he gets swung by the smoke shotgun and falls because of it, thinking Nade downs Laxing, and he's gone as well, leaving Foxay in a 1v3. He understands that Foltz is in elbow, so he tries to isolate as best as he can, but this is a really hard spot to be in. He knows the front of the smoke shotgun is there. He sees it clear as day and has access to the diffuser as he goes for the plant. Somebody from SSG is going to have to stop him, as Foxay might actually have enough time, but no, he gets spotted, lots of damage done, and Thinking Nade cleans that one up. It did look a little hairy there, but ultimately, SSG win in what was a game of inches, and again, we are tied up. And with this being a tied game in the 10th round, we will indeed need all 12 rounds of regulation to put this one away.
Very odd Candela-less execution there from the Ying on Oxygen's side. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I mean, he didn't have any Candelas. He must have used them earlier in the round. Vertical, I guess. Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Oxygen had a good attempt. They could now take control of the laundry corner, though. Because they were unable to get laundry, thanks to the play from Bosco and Rampy, pretty much that's it. If you can't get that position, you can't get control over the rotate from the defenders, and you cannot go for a plant. Oxygen spent up all their manpower trying to get that position. Eventually did in a 1v3, though. That doesn't really matter. I did say Foxay needed to be careful, but yeah, he ended up being the last one alive, and in a no-win scenario at that. Oxygen also spent a lot of time, I gotta say, on clearing out the top 2 floors. They probably had like, what, 45 seconds, 30 seconds left when they started executing into the site. It's just not a lot to work with. And that's kind of typical, I suppose, for Oregon. But at the same time, we've seen better from Oxygen. They can do better. And yeah, time management needs to be fixed up a little bit there.
I mean, the gamble for Space Station ultimately did end up paying off, so kudos to them for that. But their site selection right now is really limited just to the 2 main bomb sites that we tend to see on Oregon. If they win here, the match will be on the line with a 3rd bomb site that SSG hasn't played yet. That is a roll of the die. And given the fact that SSG went to laundry supply room downstairs 3 times without going to kitchen, or meeting rather, or going to dining, I think it's a fair estimate, or fair guess, fair assumption, to say that a big part of that is that they're not confident in those bomb sites. So it will be a big gamble potentially with the matchup on the line. Meanwhile, OXG are looking and shaping up for very similar to what they did before, which is take control of Master, open up that closet, and then try for a plant in Games Room. SSG were able to thwart it because of their focus downstairs. It was Thinking Nade with the C4. This time around, it's Foltz who's going to have the C4 in hand. And he's barricaded himself downstairs inside of security with mute jammers, which is going to be a headache for OXG to get through.
That setup there from Foltz. It's definitely, yeah, it's a tough cookie to crack because you can't push through the door. It's an SAS operator. He's got a shotgun and an SMG-11. He's either going to one-pump you or kill you with one of the fastest DPS guns in the game. And you can't open up the walls because he's got those muted, so Maverick's going to have to position himself to deal with that. SSG have managed to set up in a way that will, no matter what, waste time. C4 ripped there from Foltz, and that was aimed at the Zofia bottom white stairs, but caution from Yaga as he keeps skating around trying to avoid getting taken down by that C4. Nade to the top of Freezer stairs will get Rampy, and as he goes down, Oxygen with the lead-off frag. There's still Foltz inside of security. He needs to be dealt with. And he will be down on the floor now. Whether or not the attackers know it, they're soon to find out. And there it is. The call is in. 2 nades from Vertical, 2 kills for Vertical. Oxygen in a great position to put this onto match point. Kino taking a little bit of damage on the big window. Great use of the Ana clone. And a follow-up as well from Laxing and Yaga will net Bosco by games. Luke and Thinking now. The last 2 defenders make that just Thinking. He has to retake against 5 attackers from Trophy. Do a lot of damage to Vertical, but not enough to get the kill. And now in the post plant, this is looking pretty darn desperate. Position given away, and he can't even land a single shot on Yaga. A flawless round for Oxygen. What a way to put us on to match point.
Diffuser down, first kill, flawless round. It doesn't get more perfect than that. Maybe barring somebody getting all the kills for themselves. Yeah. But there's no ace on the board here. This is do or die for Space Station, and a troubling spot because, like I said, they've only shown that they're comfortable on 2 bomb sites. Are they going to go back? Are they going to fight on dorms? Well, they're going to take a timeout in this very final round of regulation. They have kitchen and dining hall queued up, so it is possible that that's where they're going to go, and we'll finally see a 3rd bomb site emerge from Space Station. Until they do that, we can turn our sights to what happens potentially in overtime. Because I'll let you break down that previous round, as messy as that execute ended up being, and a lot faster than I expected it to. The very first set of kills started coming out with a minute left in that round. If we go to overtime, it's going to be OXG on defense twice. And they'll be starting, obviously, and then ending the matchup, regardless of what ends up happening in this 12th round if overtime is required. Right now, it's pretty dead even. And to force overtime, we would need both sides to go 3-3 through the halves. Now, there's not much we can really glean from that. And even if there was any kind of pattern, just take a look at the SQ-TSM matchup we just saw, in which the defenders just crushed it in regulation, and then the attackers did really well in overtime. In the meantime, though, it is indeed going to be a kitchen and dining hall defense for Space Station. They're not going to gamble on dorms, and laundry after 3 attempts is finally locked for them. So, I'm worried if I'm SSG at this point.
I'd be worried as well. You talked about how going to that tertiary site is going to be a gamble earlier, and I agree. I thought that was what was going to get us overtime, Parker. I thought, oh, okay, you know, SSG is going to win your typical top floor defense. They can't go bottom floor still because they already won that. And normal. Then Oxygen will win the attack on the off site, which is here. Then when Oxygen won that last attack, and they won it so flawlessly at that, I mean, yeah, this is bad for Space Station. Now, we see these kinds of sites, these what we call off sites. We see these ones go like strongly one way or another. They're very rarely a back and forth kind of site. So either SSG is going to absolutely trounce Oxygen here, because Oxygen is maybe employing an execution that they're not really confident in, or something like that, or this is already over.
Well, I like what we tend to see out of teams in this Showers defense, and it gets done quite often. There's a mirror that might get played in this spot if she's up. Obviously not available in this matchup. She was banned out by OXG. So Fultz's position, he's going to anchor down a portion of this defense just a little bit off site. And what he's going to do is he's going to impact any potential hard destruction that goes on the panel inside of Showers. Additionally, if Rampy is called to action, he could potentially come in as well. And there's a lot of hard destruction that can be eaten up in this particular way. Now, OXG don't want to necessarily open up that whole soft wall, because then they'll have to provoke a fight with the Maestro playing in that role. And Fultz is one of the finest Maestros in all of the world, and you don't necessarily want to go head-to-head with any Maestro, let alone one who's quite skilled. That Aldo will make you pay more often than not.
Yana Clone, not very useful there from vertical as it gets shot down. But then, man, we're just talking about Fultz. SSG have not been pushed off of any of their power positions here to control dining. Selmas, though, have managed to get the wall open up, and good control established from the attack. Evil Eyes to be dealt with, though. Still plenty of time. Oxygen are not in a hurry here. Impact to try and deny hard destruction on the wall, but there's nothing there. False assumption that there would be from Fultz, but it doesn't really matter that much. He's still alive. That's what mostly matters. A wide swing, and it net to kill. The nade won't hit anything, and as Rampy pushes up through the locker hallway, he's able to support Fultz and get a one for himself. There's another for Fultz, almost a third, but Vertical's just better. Laxing will also get one from the bottom white window before getting downed by Rampy, who has been great in supporting Fultz on this position. There's the third kill for Rampy, and SSG will bring us to overtime.
Well, these timeouts have worked wonders for both of the teams. As we saw from the OXG timeout, it was 3 rounds in a row to not just tie up the match, but then gain the lead. This time around, right after a rehost happens and right after the tactical timeout happens, it's SSG to take the lion's share of those rounds and win the immediate round after the timeout. Now, OXG is going to go on to defense twice, as I said. This is a mixed bag here. There's no real consensus, and I don't know if you're going to differ from me here, but there's no real consensus as to which side you're going to want to be on. Whether it's OXG on defense, SSG on defense, both of these teams emerged from their halves even 3-3. That's why we're in overtime, not because it was a 5-1 or a 4-2. In this case, OXG is going to go down to laundry supply room. This has been a major Achilles heel in the attack of SSG. Not just because OXG's defense has looked good, but more so that Spacestation have really struggled with the strategic aspect of this bomb site. They have instead oftentimes focused on trying to brute force it, whether it be somebody playing on defense on pillars or whether attacking through E-Box. SSG's focus has been a little bit too linear. I wouldn't be too surprised if this time around SSG decides to maybe focus on Freezer, maybe put somebody towards the main stairs, and have somebody on E-Box or Blue, as a lot of teams will, but try to spread out their resources, because the stacked pushes that we've seen from SSG on their 2 attempts on this bomb site did not work so well for them.
Attackers are moving out to locate a bomb.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to differ. It's hard to disagree with the stats. I mean, 3-3 is 3-3. Now,
thank you.
You're welcome. One thing I think is going to be really important here is whether or not Oxygen give up early kills, because we've seen Oxygen on defense constantly giving up frags to SSG. Remember last time Yaga roamed here? Well, he got shut down really early on, and he was an integral player for his team. He still is. So if he dies in security once again, well, that's, well, very tricky. He doesn't have anything to rotate out of security besides the whole giant hole that I, didn't see until just now. And the drop down as well, which is also open. So he doesn't have to commit to this hold. He can fall back whenever he wants. So Oxygen are not playing with fire too much here. Again, as long as Oxygen doesn't give up this early frag, I think they're in a good spot to take this round.
Already you're making prognostications in front of all these viewers. They call me the prognosticator.
Oh my gosh.
Who does that? What a fadeaway shot from Vertical. Good Lord. Say goodnight, Rampy. And obviously you have to pay credit for a shot as good as that was. As you saw, that hatch opened up and immediately OXG hit the deck. Now with picking off Rampy, take a look at the operator who that happens to be. It's Ace. But the good news for SSG is they've still got 2 more hard breachers. They're taking all but Hibana. So the exothermic charges, of which Luke is now going to have 1 as another goes off inside of the meeting hall drop towards E-Box. And as well, Maverick still has basically full utility at this point. In fact, he does actually have full utility. So there's a lot that Bosco can do with this. The problem for SSG has been time management time and time again on this bomb site. And yeah, OXG is expecting a blue take, they're expecting a pillars take, and it looks like they're pretty much correct as the blue door gets shot open. A grenade from Bosco finds Kino, so that's the start that SSG wants to their eventual execute. But SSG have not switched things up, and they've still got Yaga anchored down at pillars. This is the spot that he's been so proficient at before.
Calm before the storm here. SSG committed to the back take. Vertical has taken the position that Kino just died at, assuming that the enemy team will not expect this, and he might be right about that, as Fultz is primarily focused on pillar. He's also got to worry about the single wall that's opened up, but Bosco with the lead off and Vertical with 2 to answer back. It's been an absolute chaos on this entry, but Thinking Nate is now the last attacker left alive, and he will be the final one to die. Foxe, the last kill. Oxygen put themselves onto overtime match point.
I don't know what it is with this bomb site, but things just go from bad to worse in the span of a second or two, Michael. That action occurred over at best 2 seconds and over half of the server is dead. And I get it. If you're SSG, you want to push very quickly because you want to try to catch them off guard, especially with the way that SSG doesn't ever seem to have any utility to flush out the defenders. If you watch exactly what happens, the Nomad obviously that's being brought consistently is great for anti-flank, but outside of that, the flashbangs are really the only thing she brings to the table other than a firearm. If you look at somebody like Zofia, I don't necessarily see the Zoth being put to good use. The other 3 players were using hard breachers on SSG. Ace is gone. You have no smokes. You know from the 6 rounds that we saw from Space Station on attack, they did a pretty decent job of being able to cut off portions of the bomb site, deny line of sight for the defenders, force the defenders out of their favorable positions and into the players from SSG waiting. The problem is that there were no smokes left after Ace went down. So if you're SSG, you basically just need to take engagements without flashes, without stuns, without smokes. And they didn't bring a Ying this time either. They wanted to triple up on that hard destruction. They got map control pretty early on, but when you're attacking the bottom floor, map control is not always that paramount if teams peel back pretty quickly, because there's a lot of hard walls, there's a lot of reinforcements, and some teams will set up a lot of barricades or even kill holes that you have to account for. And that's just been too much for SSG so far, and it's why OXG is perfect. 3-0 on that bomb site.
Blitz. Interesting. I mean, I could see Blitz being useful on this site, especially given some of the problems that have been presented to the attack so far. Hey, if you want to take elbow control, he's one of the better ways to do it. Obviously, Flores will be great when you can actually do Flores, but he's not available yet in comp play, so... shoving it in with a Blitz all the way to elbow can be good, but you also have to worry about the crossfire from Pillar, so that's something that Oxygen's going to have to consider when they eventually get to the execution.
It's going to be fascinating to see that they use it. This is the second shield operator that Foxay's bringing out on this match. If you remember, he played the Clash when they tried to defend against SSG's Dorms attack, and it did not work. Blitz is a risky gamble. I mean, I don't know the last time I've seen Foxay play a shield operator at this level, so it's definitely something that is amusing to watch and can also be potentially quite informative. Now, OXG are shaping up to go for the same style of execute that we've seen out of SSG every single time on this bomb site. They're going to pressure from blue, they're going to push in from Harry Potter, and they're going to try to control E-Box. And their smokes have done what SSG couldn't do. Boltz is waiting on the back stairs for one of these 3 players from OXG to dare him into an engagement. Side by side with Rampy, this duo has been so formidable. Fultz shrugs off a bit of damage though now, as there's a minute and 15 left. And just like the previous round, OXG are very eager to push this advantage early. And that damage done to Fultz could end up coming back to haunt them. Elbow being done some significant damage. Foxay realizes it's a Pyrrhic victory, but again, half of the server is dead and there's still a minute to go. Vertical clearing out the barbed wire on backstairs as he wants to push in with Laxing above. OXG in trouble, obviously, but they've still got 50 seconds to try to make something work with this round.
In order for it to work for Oxygen, they need to allow Vertical to push down the staircase. And oh, wow, this positioning from Fultz is not going to work out. Vertical will win that fight. It's about as bad as it could have gone for SSG. A little bit of damage done to Vertical, sure, but now this is a 2v2 with 30 seconds left. Nade goes in to try and cover rotation, doesn't net any kill. Still a C4 in the pocket and thinking Nade, that's going to be the linchpin here for SSG if it ends up being a plant play for Oxygen. Oh! Doesn't even mean to do it! But thinking Nade will take down Laxing through the wall, meaning it's just Vertical and he won't even get one. That is unfortunate.
Well, 2 Oregons and 15 rounds both times, as you see the marks coming out, which meant that there was some form of information, whether a bulletproof, which has been brought quite regularly by Space Station, or the more likely culprit is an Evil Eye Cam in that particular instance. And it works for SSG. Information is your most valuable tool in this game at the best of times, and is especially so in the dying moments of a round. Oxygen decided to go for blows early. This is a team that knows that their aggression and their gunners are very capable of overwhelming and outdueling your opponents. They got control of that top floor, opened up the hatch in meeting, knew that they had to deal with the Aruni, but also understood that breaching control of blue and pillars was the hardest part for SSG and is often the hardest part for most teams. And I hate to consistently reference those 2 parts of the map, but when you're attacking laundry supply, those are absolutely critical. So in this instance, Foxe sprints in, knows that he has to challenge the smoke or whoever, likely a smoke, in this instance a smoke, but sometimes it can be another operator, playing on elbow, and immediately the smoke hits the volcanic shield, tries to get out of there, can't do it. Foxe gets the kill, but also dies as well, which is why I said it was a Pyrrhic victory. And then the rest of OXG, well, they try to capitalize off of that, which I think is the smart play to move. You flushed out elbow, you're worried about getting swamped, so SSG needs to rotate and try to reposition. Maybe even barricading or reinforcing that wall into elbow. They're not able to do that, obviously. OXG and SSG come to blows at what is essentially just a fracas on the bomb site, and SSG comes out ahead of it.
Vertical playing in the bottom floor, and he's trying to lay down a flank in the later portions of the round from Freezer. He can do some work on that, and if he's not droned out, it'll be pretty easy for him to do as well. Frost being brought here by Foxe. We've got 4, count them, 4 shields in play. Yeah, it's pretty wild. That's a lot. I'm sure that Oxygen will make great use of them. A lot of that use is going to be defined by the ADS placement from Vertical, because when you have 4 shields to cover and only 3 ADSs to cover them, you're pretty limited in your options. It's a double peek here by Oxygen onto the satellite window. I think they're waiting for a call, maybe from some cam somewhere. And no, it's just, okay, it's a bait from Vertical, and the follow-up from Laxing, it looks like. Either way, this isn't likely to net a kill, as SSG have got to be used to that angle. Now work begins for SSG on opening up the site, slowly peeling away those shields in the site, identifying the ADSs so that they can make that possible, clear them out, and then setting up for their execute.
Yeah, but keep in mind this happened to SSG before when OXG just hit the bomb site, realizing that it was a 3v5 for SSG if OXG just decided all at once to just go for it. So same thing could happen here, because the 2 players from OXG in both Laxing and Vertical, they're going to need to come back to the bomb site at some time, and it might take them quite a while. Now, they've started their move. They're downstairs by Zed. They'll be approaching Classroom very quickly, and then they can begin to go up the main stairs as well. Vertical hasn't been droned out. It looks like that vision from SSG was too narrow and won't necessarily spot him. So SSG now need to be very aware of the flank. The good news is they've got one of the best flank watches in the entire league in Thinking Nade. His 3 air jabs are out, so if one of them is by the main stairs, this could obviously greatly aid Space Station. OXG know that the take is coming from over towards Trophy. SSG not going for the double window. Here comes the Calamity, though, as he'll toss out Candelas. He'll toss out the smokes, and in ramp he goes. He looks for one. Bosco gets the lead-off kill. Kino Smoke claims another, and OXG, just like that, conquers the kill feed and conquers the game. They take round 15 in a thrilling back-to-back since round 7. And OXG with a Frost Mat as insult get the game.
Oh, man. Y'all couldn't see it because we were looking at Oxygen, who looked ecstatic to have won that very long match. But yeah, the last kill was Frost Mat on Big Window on Thinking Nade. Oh, that is unfortunate. Unfortunate for SSG, very fortunate for OXG, who have proven to be the superior gaming team, at least in this match, and that's going to give them good position moving forward in the league.
Yeah, those are a big 3 points for them, and for
2.
SSG, who are currently, this is OXG, by the way, who with those 2 points, as you noted. Yeah, because we've changed up how the scoring works. If you make it to overtime, you're guaranteed a single point. With SSG getting that point, well, it's good enough to separate them from Mirage, but not good enough to overcome Beast Coast in 6th place. For OXG, well, they'll leapfrog over Dark Zero, and they'll be in 3rd, but DZ is up next, so it's entirely possible that Dark Zero can reclaim that top 3 spot. Regardless, for a team like Space Station, you have to imagine that this is considered a loss. This is a team that right now is struggling with their identity, struggling with leadership, and struggling to find the same success in an on LAN rather, best of 1 scenario. It's tough to be an SSG fan for those people out there right now, but for OXG fans, there is much rejoicing after
Yeah,
that
I
match.
think OXG and the players on the team itself are starting to develop new fans because they're definitely a different team than what we saw in the last season. And it's cool to see their performance so far through this stage. On the hand of SSG, it's weird, Parker, because it's like SSG is so close to success. A lot of these matches that they're losing, it seems like they're really in it. I think the only absolute blowout that Space Station had was against the Sonics, where they got 7-2'd. But apart from that, I mean, last Playday, it was 6-8 against TSM. Now it's 7-8 against OXG. It's just kind of weird to see. Like, I feel like they're one step away from being the SSG everyone's used to.
I mean, we can say that, but I always hearken back to the old ENCE days where they were the worst team in the EU Pro League, but they were losing every match 5-7. They were making it to the 12th round in every single matchup. It doesn't matter how close your losses are. You got to start getting some points on the board. And right now, this phase for Space Station, it's passing by them pretty quickly. And that was a quick match for all 15 rounds. If you consider that a grueling back and forth between two teams, we've got one more matchup for you. XSET versus Dark Zero is going to close out the day, but we've got a break ready for you. So don't touch that browser. We'll be right back.